Jake Morrison walked into the huge chamber on Nexus Prime. His footsteps echoed on the smooth metal floor. Around him sat creatures from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant insects with too many eyes. Others were made of living crystal that sparkled under the bright lights. A few resembled floating jellyfish that glowed with soft colors. Jake had been Earth's main ambassador for 3 years. He had learned to read the body language of dozens of different species. Today, he could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. Behind Jake sat 3 other humans. Captain Roy Henderson wore his crisp blue uniform with pride. Dr. Susan Wells clutched her datapad filled with research notes. Commander Pete Taylor kept his hand near his sidearm, though weapons were forbidden in the chamber. The Galactic Council had been humanity's gateway to the stars. When Earth first made contact with alien life, the Council had seemed like a miracle. Thousands of species working together, sharing knowledge, keeping peace across the galaxy. Humans had joined eagerly, ready to learn and help. That was before Jake learned how things really worked. The Council speaker, Zix Thera, rose from her crystal throne. She was 12 feet tall and shaped like a living diamond. Her voice rang out like wind chimes in a hurricane. "The matter before us today concerns the human species," she announced. "For too long they have disrupted our ancient ways. They refuse to follow proper procedures. They solve problems without consulting the proper committees. They make decisions too quickly and ask too many questions." Jake felt his jaw tighten. In the past 3 years, humans had done nothing but help. When the Zephyrians and Krellians were bombing each other's planets, human negotiator Lisa Carter had worked for 6 months without sleep to create a peace treaty. Both sides were still following it today. When the Vorthan plague started killing entire colonies, the Council's medical committee had spent 2 years arguing about which research approach to fund. Dr. Alan Brooks ignored their debates and found a cure in 3 weeks. Millions of lives were saved. When pirates started attacking trade ships near the Outer Rim, the Council's security forces said the area was too dangerous to patrol. Captain Rick Barnes took his small human fleet and cleared out the pirates in 2 months. Trade routes that had been closed for years reopened. Now the Council called this excessive aggression and unpredictable behavior. Zixathera continued her speech. "Humans do not respect the wisdom of ages. They think their young species knows better than civilizations that are millions of years old. They form personal relationships with other species instead of working through proper diplomatic channels." Jake almost laughed. The proper diplomatic channels meant sending a request to a committee, who would send it to another committee, who would schedule a meeting 6 months in the future. By then, whatever crisis they were trying to solve would have killed thousands of people. "The vote will now be taken," Zixthera announced. "All in favor of expelling humanity from the Galactic Council?" Lights began flashing across the chamber. Jake watched as species after species voted against humanity. The Draknari, whose colonies humans had protected from asteroids. The Altarians, whose children humans had saved from the plague. The Hegemony, whose trade routes humans had reopened. One by one, they voted to throw humanity out. Only one light stayed dark. Ambassador Veltar of the Androni sat quietly in her corner. She was a gentle being who looked like a walking flower. Her people were peaceful farmers who had never hurt anyone. She was the only one who seemed to understand what was happening. The final count appeared on the great display. 847 votes for expulsion, 1 against. Jake stood up slowly. He looked around the chamber at all the alien faces. Some looked pleased with themselves. Others seemed uncomfortable but unwilling to speak up. A few wouldn't meet his eyes at all. "Very well," Jake said. His voice was calm and steady. "Humanity accepts your decision. We will leave Council space immediately." Captain Henderson stood up beside him. "All human personnel will be withdrawn within 1 week," he announced. "All joint projects will be terminated. All cooperative agreements will be canceled." Dr. Wells added, "All research data sharing will cease. All medical assistance programs will end." Commander Taylor's voice was cold. "All security support will be withdrawn. All defense agreements are void." Jake saw a few aliens shift nervously. In their seats, they were starting to realize what they had just done, but it was too late to change their minds now. "We wish the Council well in their future endeavors," Jake said politely. "Come on, everyone, we're going home." The four humans walked out of the chamber together. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Behind them, 847 species had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. As they reached the exit, Jake heard Veltar's voice calling softly, "Ambassador Morrison, please wait." Jake turned back. The flower-like alien approached them carefully. "This is wrong," she whispered. "My people know what you have done for us. The atmospheric processors you helped us build. The crops you taught us to grow. Without your help, our children would have starved." Jake smiled sadly. "We'll remember that, Veltar. Your people will always be welcome in human space." "But what will happen to the rest of us?" she asked. "Who will solve the problems? Who will stop the wars? Who will find cures when new plagues come?" Jake looked back at the chamber, where 847 species were probably celebrating their victory. "I guess they'll have to figure that out for themselves." As the humans left Nexus Prime for the last time, none of them realized they were about to prove just how much the galaxy needed them. The Council thought they were getting rid of troublemakers. Instead, they had just expelled the only species keeping their civilization from falling apart. The countdown to disaster had begun. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center of Earth's biggest space station. Through the giant windows, she could see hundreds of ships moving between Earth and the Moon. Each ship carried the same message that had gone out to every human in the galaxy 3 days ago. "Come home. Bring everything. Leave nothing behind." Kate had spent her whole career building relationships with alien species. She had commanded joint fleets with Dreknari captains. She had shared meals with Altarian officers. She had learned to speak 12 different alien languages. Now she was organizing the biggest retreat in human history. "Status report," she called out to her staff. Lieutenant Commander Bill Hayes looked up from his screens. "Colony 7 has finished packing. Their transport ships launch in 2 hours. The mining station at Kepler 442 will be empty by tomorrow. All research facilities in the Vega system are shutting down right now." Kate nodded. Every human outpost, every research station, every trade depot was being evacuated. Nothing would be left behind for the Council to use. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Nathan Pierce was packing up his laboratory. For 5 years, he had worked with Dr. Zernok of the Altarians to study diseases that affected both their species. They had become close friends, sharing stories about their families and dreams for the future. "Nathan, you cannot be serious about this," Dr. Zernok said as he watched his human friend load equipment into shipping containers. "Our research is too important. We are so close to finding a cure for the Rigel fever. Thousands of people will die without this work." Nathan paused. The Rigel fever had killed his own sister 2 years ago. Finding a cure was the most important thing in his life. But the Council had made their choice. "The Council voted us out, old friend," Nathan said, quietly. "They don't want our help anymore. But surely we can make an exception. The research belongs to both our peoples." Nathan sealed another container. Inside were years of work that could save millions of lives. The research was done in a Council facility, using Council resources. According to their own rules, we can't take it with us. Dr. Zernok's flower-like face drooped. "Then let me copy the data. I can continue the work alone. Without human genetic samples, without our computer models, without the equipment we designed together." Nathan shook his head. "You'll have to start over from the beginning. That will take years." As Nathan loaded the last container, he saw tears in his alien friend's compound eyes. But orders were orders. Every piece of human equipment, every bit of human knowledge, every human person was going home. Captain Rick Barnes was having the same conversation with his Dreknari counterpart on a space station near the war zone between the Vegan and Centauri systems. For months, he had been keeping the peace between 2 species that hated each other. "Captain Barnes, you cannot leave now," Admiral Keth insisted. The ceasefire is holding only because your ships patrol the border. Without you, they will start fighting again within days. Rick looked out at the patrol routes his ships had been flying for 8 months. Every day his crews had stopped merchant ships and checked for weapons. They had investigated reports of violations. They had talked both sides out of small conflicts that could have become big wars. Admiral, my government has recalled all our forces. I have no choice. But the peace treaty depends on neutral observers. Who will monitor the border zones? Rick packed his personal belongings into a small bag. The Council will have to find someone else. There is no one else, Admiral Keth said desperately. The Draknari cannot do it because the Vegans do not trust us. The Altarians are too far away. The hegemony refuses to get involved. Then maybe the Vegans and Centaurians will have to learn to trust each other without babysitters, Rick replied. All across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Engineer Amy Foster shut down the fusion reactors she had built for struggling colonies. Without those reactors, the colonies would lose power within weeks. Trader Danny Walsh closed his shipping routes that connected dozens of worlds. Without his cargo ships, isolated planets would run out of food and medicine. The most painful evacuation was happening on the Androni homeworld. For 15 years, Dr. Jack Foster had helped them maintain their delicate atmosphere. The Androni had evolved on a world with very specific air conditions. When they started building cities and factories, their atmosphere began to change. Dr. Foster had designed a network of processors that kept the air breathable. Ambassador Veltar met him at the spaceport as he prepared to leave. "Dr. Foster, please," she begged. "Our atmospheric processors are breaking down. We need your help to fix them." Jack looked at the data pad she handed him. The readings were getting worse every day. If the processors failed completely, the Androni would have to abandon their homeworld. "I'm sorry, Veltar. The Council made it clear that humans are not welcome. But this is different. This is about survival." Jack climbed aboard his transport ship. "Maybe the Council's scientists can help you. They do not understand our atmosphere like you do. They have been studying it for only a few months. You have worked with it for 15 years. The ship's engines started warming up. Through the window, Jack could see Androni families hurrying through the streets wearing breathing masks. The air was already becoming dangerous. "I have to go," he said. As his ship lifted off, Jack watched the beautiful flower cities of the Androni grow small below him. He might be the last human ever to see them. By the time he reached Earth, those cities might be empty. All across Council space, the same story was repeating. Humans were leaving. They took their knowledge, their equipment, and their willingness to help others. They left behind empty buildings and broken systems that no one else knew how to fix. The exodus was so fast and complete that many alien species barely noticed it happening. The humans had become part of the background, always there when needed, never making a big fuss about their contributions. Only when they were gone would the galaxy realize how much they had been doing. Within 1 week, every human in Council space was gone. They had kept their word perfectly, but they had also taken with them the invisible networks that kept galactic civilization running smoothly. The Council had won their victory. Soon they would learn what it had cost them. 2 weeks after the last human ship left Council space, the first emergency alarm rang in the Galactic Council headquarters. Council Speaker Zix Thara was reviewing trade reports when her assistant rushed into her crystal chamber. The small creature looked terrified. "Speaker, we have a crisis. The Vegans and Centaurians are fighting again." Zix Thara looked up from her reports. "That is impossible. They signed a peace treaty 8 months ago." "The treaty is broken, Speaker. 3 Vegan cargo ships were destroyed this morning. The Centaurians claim the ships were carrying weapons. The Vegans say they were carrying medical supplies." Zix Thara felt a cold fear in her crystal heart. For 8 months there had been peace in that region. The 2 species had stopped their endless war and started trading with each other. Now the fighting was starting again. "Send a message to the human mediator." What was his name? Tony Garcia. "Tell him to go there immediately." Her assistant looked even more frightened. "Speaker, the humans are gone. Remember, we expelled them from the Council." The memory hit Zixathera like a physical blow. Tony Garcia had been quietly working between the Vegans and Centaurians for months. He would meet secretly with leaders from both sides, listening to their complaints and finding compromises. No one had paid much attention to his work because there were no big meetings or fancy ceremonies. He had just prevented a war by talking to people. Now he was gone. Then send our own peacekeepers, Zixathera ordered. Speaker, our ships cannot operate in that region. The stellar radiation interferes with our navigation systems. Only the human ships had the special shielding needed to patrol those space lanes. Zixathera stared at her assistant. The human ships had been patrolling the vegan Centauri border for months, but she had never thought about why only they could do it. Now she understood. The humans had modified their ships specifically for that dangerous region. While Zixathera was learning about the first crisis, Dr. Zernok was discovering the second one. His medical research station was supposed to receive a shipment of vaccine supplies from the automated factory on Kepler 442b. The vaccines were needed to prevent another outbreak of Rigel fever. But the factory had stopped producing them. Dr. Zernok called the factory supervisor, a hegemony official named Glixamar. What happened to my vaccine shipment? Dr. Zernok asked. Doctor, we have a big problem, Glixamar replied. Our automated systems are breaking down. Production has stopped on 3 assembly lines. 2 more lines are producing defective products. What about your maintenance team? That is the problem. The human engineer Carol Stevens designed all our maintenance procedures. She trained our technicians and set up the repair schedules. But she left with the other humans 2 weeks ago. Dr. Zernok felt sick. Carol Stevens had spent 2 years at that factory, learning every detail of the production systems. She had written detailed manuals and trained dozens of workers, but apparently the manuals were not enough. Can your technicians not follow her? Written instructions? We are trying, Doctor, but the instructions assume knowledge we do not have. She wrote about fixing thermal coupling units and quantum flux stabilizers, but our workers do not understand what those things are. When she was here, she would explain everything in simple terms. Dr. Zernok ended the call and stared at his empty vaccine storage. Without those vaccines, the next outbreak of Rigel fever would kill thousands of people. Meanwhile, on the Androni homeworld, Ambassador Veltar was watching her people die. The atmospheric processors that Dr. Jack Foster had maintained were failing faster than anyone had expected. The air in the major cities was becoming poisonous. Androni families were fleeing to the countryside, but even there the air was getting worse. Veltar called an emergency meeting with the Council's environmental scientists. Can you help us repair the processors? She asked desperately. Dr. Yexnal, the Council's senior environmental expert, studied the data for hours. Finally, he shook his head. These systems are too complex. Dr. Foster modified them extensively over the years. He added components that do not appear in the original designs. He wrote custom software that we cannot understand. To fix this properly, we would need to study the systems for months, maybe years. We do not have months, Veltar said. Our children are already getting sick from the bad air. Then I suggest you evacuate your people to other worlds until we can find a solution. Veltar looked at him in shock. Evacuate our entire species? Leave our homeworld forever? It may be temporary, Dr. Yexnal said, but he did not sound convinced. Back at Council headquarters, the emergency calls were coming in faster than Zixathera could handle them. The Proxima mining station had lost contact with 3 of its cargo ships. Without human logistics coordinator Danny Walsh managing the shipping schedules, no one knew which ships were supposed to be where. A diplomatic crisis was developing between the Tau Ceti Collective and the Rigel Commonwealth. The 2 species had different mating seasons, and their trade negotiations always happened at the wrong time of year for one side or the other. Human cultural expert Helen Murphy had solved this by creating flexible meeting schedules that respected both cultures' needs. Without her, the negotiations had collapsed into angry accusations. On the outer rim, pirate attacks were increasing. Captain Rick Barnes had cleared out the pirate bases, but he had not destroyed them completely. He had left them intact as a warning to other criminals. Now new pirates were moving into the empty bases, and there were no human patrol ships to stop them. Each crisis seemed small by itself, but they were all happening at the same time, and they were all connected to the humans who had left. Zixathera finally understood what had happened. The humans had not just been another member species. They had been the oil that kept the galactic machine running smoothly. They had filled gaps that other species could not or would not fill. They had solved problems that everyone else ignored. Now the machine was starting to break down. "Send a message to Earth," Zixathera ordered her assistant. "What should the message say?" Zixathera was quiet for a long moment. Her pride was fighting with her fear. Pride was losing. "Tell them we may have made a mistake. 1 month after humanity left Council space, the galaxy was burning." Council Speaker Zixathera stood in her command center watching the main display screen. Red warning lights covered half the galaxy map. Each light represented a crisis that was spinning out of control. "Report," she commanded. Her assistant, Commander Vexnall, looked exhausted. He had not slept in 3 days. "Speaker, the situation is getting worse everywhere. The Vegan Centauri War has spread to 6 star systems. The Proxima Colony incident has turned into a full battle. 17 trade disputes have become shooting wars. And we just lost contact with the Androni homeworld." Zixathera felt her crystal form grow dim with despair. "Tell me about Proxima Colony." It started as a simple mining rights disagreement between the Zelkarian Consortium and the Tau Ceti Collective. In the past, human mediator Helen Murphy would have solved it in a few days. Instead, both sides sent their fleets. Zixathera remembered Helen Murphy. She was a small human woman who had an amazing ability to understand what different species really wanted. She would listen to both sides of an argument, then suggest solutions that made everyone happy. The Council had considered her methods too informal and unprofessional. "What happened when the fleets met?" Zixathera asked. "Disaster, Speaker. The Zelkarian ships opened fire, but their tactical computers malfunctioned. The AI systems had been developed jointly with human programmers. Without regular updates from Earth's Cybernetics Institute, critical bugs went unfixed. 3 Zelkarian destroyers accidentally fired on their own support ships." Zixathera watched the battle reports scroll across her screen. The Zelkarian fleet had destroyed itself through computer errors. "The Tau Ceti fleet did not fare better," Commander Vexnall continued. "Their energy shields failed completely under enemy fire. The shields were based on human-improved technology. Without human technicians to maintain them, they broke down, at the worst possible moment." "How many casualties?" Zixathera asked quietly. "Over 2,000 dead. Both fleets were almost completely destroyed. What should have been a minor disagreement became a massacre." While Zixathera was learning about the military disasters, Dr. Zurnok was facing a medical crisis that was growing worse every day. The vaccine factory on Kepler 442b had completely shut down. Without Carol Stevens to maintain the complex systems, the automated production lines had broken one by one. The last working assembly line had produced a batch of contaminated vaccines that made people sicker instead of protecting them. Dr. Zurnok stood in his empty laboratory, looking at reports from across the galaxy. Rigel fever was spreading again. The Altarian plague had returned to 3 colonies. A new disease was killing Dreknari children, and there were no vaccines to stop it. His communication device buzzed. It was his old friend Dr. Nathan Pierce calling from Earth. "Nathan, thank goodness," Dr. Zurnok said. "We need your help desperately. The diseases are spreading faster than we can treat them." Dr. Nathan's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and sad. "I've been watching the medical reports, old friend. I want to help, but I can't." "Why not? People are dying. Surely the human government will make an exception." "It's not about government permission," Nathan replied. "It's about practicality. The research we did together was based on data from both our species. I have the human data, but all the alien genetic samples stayed in your lab. Without that information, I can't develop new treatments." Dr. Zurnok felt his hopes crashing. "But you could come back, we could work together again." The Council made it clear that humans are not welcome. Besides, even if I came back tomorrow, it would take months to rebuild our research database. How many people will die while we're starting over? After the call ended, Dr. Zurnok sat alone in his laboratory, surrounded by empty equipment and useless data. Everything he needed to save lives was scattered across the galaxy or locked away on Earth. Meanwhile, on Luna Base, Dr. Jack Foster was watching the Androni homeworld die. His long-range sensors showed the atmospheric readings getting worse every hour. The beautiful flower cities were empty now. The Androni had fled to underground shelters, but even those were running out of clean air. "Sir," his assistant, Dr. Beth Taylor, said quietly, "we could send the fix. It would take 5 minutes to transmit. The correction protocols." Jack stared at the data for a long moment. He had worked for 15 years to understand the Androni atmosphere. He knew exactly what was wrong and exactly how to fix it. The solution was sitting in his computer files ready to transmit. The Council made their choice, Beth. They wanted us gone. But innocent people are dying. Children are suffocating. Jack turned away from the screen. He could not watch anymore. If we help them now, what message does that send? That humans will always come running back when things go wrong? That the Council can treat us badly and still expect our help? Dr. Beth Taylor was crying. So we just let them die? We let them face the consequences of their decisions. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human experts on Earth watched alien civilizations crumble while sitting on solutions they could not share, not because they were cruel, but because the Council had made it impossible for them to help. The Cascade failure was accelerating. Without human logistics experts, trade routes collapsed and isolated worlds ran out of food. Without human diplomats, old grudges turned into new wars. Without human engineers, critical infrastructure failed across dozens of star systems. The worst part was that many of the disasters were connected. The medical crisis made it harder to treat war casualties. The infrastructure failures made it harder to evacuate refugees from war zones. The trade disruptions made it harder to get medical supplies where they were needed. Council Speaker Zix Thera called another emergency session, but fewer delegates showed up each time. Some species were too busy fighting wars to attend meetings. Others had lost contact with their home governments when their communication systems failed. "We must contact Earth immediately," she announced to the half-empty chamber. "We must ask the humans to return." But when they tried to send a message to Earth, they discovered one final humiliation. The long-range communication array that connected Council headquarters to human space had been designed and maintained by human technicians. Without them, it had stopped working properly. The Council could not even apologize. They were trapped in their collapsing civilization, unable to reach the only people who could save them. 3 months after expelling humanity, the Galactic Council was preparing to abandon their headquarters. Council Speaker Zix Thera stood in the once proud command center, watching her staff pack critical files into emergency containers. Half the lights had failed and the temperature control system was breaking down. Even Nexus Prime, the heart of galactic civilization, was falling apart. "Speaker," Commander Vexnall reported, "we've lost contact with 47 member worlds. The Androni homeworld is completely silent. The hegemony has withdrawn from 3 sectors. The Altarian medical network has collapsed entirely." Zix Thera looked at the galaxy map one last time. Where 3 months ago she had seen a proud civilization spanning thousands of worlds, now she saw mostly darkness. Red warning lights marked dead systems. Yellow caution signals showed worlds in crisis. Only a few green lights remained, scattered, across the vast emptiness of space. "What about our attempt to contact Earth?" she asked. "The message was finally transmitted yesterday, Speaker. We received a response this morning." Zix Thera felt a tiny flicker of hope. "What did they say?" Commander Vexnall handed her a datapad. The message was short and polite. "The human government appreciates the Galactic Council's change of heart, but we have decided to pursue an independent path. We wish you well in your future endeavors." We are no longer available for consultation with current or former council members. The hope died in Zixthara's crystal heart. They refuse to help us. There is more, Speaker. Our long-range sensors have detected massive construction activity in the Sol system. The humans are building something called New Geneva Station. It appears to be 10 times larger than Nexus Prime. Zixthara studied the sensor readings. The humans were not just surviving without the Council. They were thriving. Free from Council bureaucracy and regulations, human innovation had exploded into something amazing. What else have they built? She asked. We've detected at least 50 new space habitats. Their industrial output has increased by 300%. They've colonized 17 new worlds and systems we've never explored. And Speaker, they've developed faster-than-light communication technology. Zixthara stared at the data. Faster than light. Communication had been a dream for millions of years. The greatest minds in the galaxy had worked on the problem for centuries. The humans had solved it in 3 months. There's something else you should know. Commander Vexnall continued carefully. We've been monitoring alien communications across the galaxy. Many non-council species are requesting permission to enter human space. Which species? Over 200 so far. The Catharian Trade Federation, the Independent Worlds Alliance, the Outer Rim Collective. Even some council members are sending secret delegations. Zixthara felt her world collapsing around her. The galaxy was reorganizing itself around humanity, leaving the council behind. What are the humans offering them? According to Intercepted, communications. They're offering everything we used to provide, but better. Free scientific exchange, open trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, medical assistance. And Speaker, they're doing it all without the bureaucracy and committees that slowed everything down here. At that moment, Ambassador Veltar of the Androni entered the command center. Zixthara was shocked to see her. The last reports had said the Androni homeworld was dying. Veltar, how are you here? We thought your people had evacuated. Veltar's flower-like face was sad but peaceful. We did evacuate, Speaker. 70,000 of my people are now living in human space. Impossible. The humans said they would not help council members. They said they would not help current or former council members. Veltar corrected. But they made an exception for species that formally withdrew from the council and requested asylum. We renounced our council membership yesterday. Zixthara felt betrayed. You abandoned us. We did what we had to do to survive. The humans welcomed us with open arms. They fixed our atmospheric processors within hours. They gave us new worlds to live on. They treated us like honored guests, not refugees. But the vote to expel them, you were the only one who opposed it. Yes, and I tried to warn you all, but you would not listen. Now look what has happened. Veltar gestured at the failing command center around them. The humans have sent me with a final message, she continued. They are establishing a new alliance called the Free Worlds Federation. Any species that wants to join is welcome, but membership is voluntary. There are no forced contributions, no endless committees, no ancient laws that cannot be changed. She handed Zixthara a small device. This contains the application process. If any council species wants to join, they must first formally withdraw from the council and apologize for the expulsion vote. Zixthara looked at the device as if it were poison. They want us to beg for forgiveness. They want you to take responsibility for your actions, Veltar replied. They want you to admit that you were wrong. After Veltar left, Zixthara called an emergency council session. Only 43 species attended. The others were either fighting wars, dealing with crises, or had already secretly contacted the humans. Fellow council members, Zixthara began, we face a choice. We can try to rebuild our civilization alone, or we can seek membership in the Human Alliance. Admiral Keith of the Dreknari stood up. Speaker, my people are starving. Our trade routes are gone. Our colonies are under attack by pirates. We cannot rebuild alone. Dr. Zernok added his voice. My medical facilities are empty. I cannot save. Lives without human research and technology. Pride will not cure diseases. One by one, the remaining council members voiced their agreement. They had learned the hard way that some problems could only be solved together. Then we are agreed, Zixthara said. We will formally dissolve the Galactic Council and apply to join the Free Worlds Federation. 6 months later, Zixthara stood in the main hall of New Geneva Station. She wore a simple identification badge that read, Former Council Speaker, Probationary Member. The badge was a daily reminder of her mistakes. Around her, thousands of beings from hundreds of species worked together in ways the old council had never achieved. Humans moved easily among them, not as rulers but as partners and friends. Jake Morrison, now the Federation's Director of Species Relations, approached her. How are you adjusting? He asked kindly. It is difficult, Zixthara admitted. Everything works so much better here. I keep wondering what we could have accomplished if we had listened to you from the beginning. Jake smiled. The past is the past. What matters is what we build together now. As Zixthara watched humans and aliens working side by side, she realized the truth that had taken her so long to understand. The humans had never wanted to rule the galaxy. They had just wanted to help make it better, and now finally they could.